than 114 days from the date of the vacancy. Well, obviously that's beyond your November election when this particular seat is already up for election. So in interpreting the statute, we believe the reasonable interpretation, and we understand other cities have interpreted it this way throughout the state in other situations, is that instead of calling a special election, we believe that you have the authority to simply let the general regular election in November be used for a selection of the replacement. You're obviously not filling the remainder of the term because that term is up at that election. But we don't believe that the statute forces you to appoint somebody simply because the special election procedure can't be accomplished. You don't have the time to do the special election procedure. Again, the statute says the special election can't be held less than 114 days, and it's at the next regular election date that is not less than 114 days. What that means, therefore, is it takes you out to March 3rd. The state, by statute, sets regular election dates. The next regular election date beyond November is March 3rd. So that can't happen. So we believe that you have the authority to simply let the electorate select the replacement like they normally would do in November when the term expires. The reasoning being, if the statute allows you to leave it vacant for at least 114 days, then we believe it allows you to leave it vacant and let the electorate select the replacement in a less period of time than the 114 days. So that's what we believe. So you really have two options: let the election occur in November and leave it vacant until then, or fill it by appointment.
And to let it go through to November and leaving it vacant, would we have to indicate by motion that we are looking at a special election?
I think you could, well, you're not looking at a special election, no, but I think two things can happen. I think that you as a council, as a majority, can decide to simply let the general election occur in November and leave it vacant until then. Or two, if you can't decide on an appointment, meaning if you have let's say you have four of you, so if you have a 2-2 vote, 2 want to appoint, 2 want the general election to occur, by default, the general election will occur at that point.
Thank you.
So you can either do it affirmatively by a 3-1 or a 4-0 vote, or 2-2 would result in the same thing. The general election would decide the replacement in November as normal.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dick. I know you were going to make comments.
I'd like to offer another view, another perspective on this. First, timing. We say we've got 4 months. No, we don't. We have 2 meetings per month, and we just had one tonight. You were here. So actually, we only have 3.5 months to go until the December, or the first meeting in December. I'm not sure if it's actually on the first, but the first meeting in December is 3.5 months. Secondly, I talk an awful lot about our Constitution and how much I love it and respect it more and more and more and more and more. And we, the citizens, get to elect the people who are going to be on the dais and our other elected officials who make choices on our behalf. Okay? We elect them. They're not appointed. Because although we appoint people for planning and parks and now Jim with the library, they don't make decisions that are absolutely final. The people on the dais do. And I think that you, the citizens, we, the citizens of Corona, deserve to have elected people. That is, people that we elected. And as a result, I think that that's exactly what should happen, that we should have elected people here, not appointed. Second thing, there's beauty in simplicity. There really is. And I think that we have proven to you, the citizens, that the 4 of us are doing a darn good job, in my opinion. And we will continue to do a very good job because we want to do a good job for you, the citizens. There's a lot of things going on in our city, and we have enough things to worry about now with more distractions, and I think that this would be distraction. The other thing is the vetting process. How are we going to get this thing done? By committee? Well, let's go back to my first point. They're not elected. How are we going, now, Moreno Valley recently just had a similar situation where their city council appointed a gentleman in closed session. Do we want that? I don't think so. I don't think so. Also, the gentleman in Moreno Valley was not able to fulfill his position that he was appointed to because he didn't live in the area. Well, I think that we're going to do a heck of a lot better job in vetting and making sure that the guy or the gal is going to be legal, so that's not going to be a problem. But nonetheless, are we going to have this thing in closed session, that secrecy thing, or are we going to have it in open session? We're not going to have it settled by the next meeting. There's no way it could happen by the next meeting, so it probably won't happen until the 1st of September, at the earliest. I just wonder about how the heck that's going to happen. I think it's going to be very, very cumbersome to have an appointment, and I don't think it's fair to the citizens of Corona to spend the staff time and the expense to go through this. Everybody knows that we've laid off a lot of people. Everybody knows that our departments are doing a mighty job, and we just don't need to add more tasks on top of them. Something was talked about breaking a tie. Okay, 2 people want it in red, 2 people want it in blue. All right, that can happen. Doesn't happen very frequently, but that can happen. But you know, a person can always come back after the next election when we have a full complement of 5 city council people up here and have a do-over. So it's not, oh, cheapers, it was a 2-2, we lost, we have to pack up our tent and go home. No, it's not, because we have extenuating circumstances. One of my favorite words that I learned when I was in law school was the term reasonable. And is it reasonable that we make decisions and could have a tie and they could come back? And the answer is yes. So we want to be a reasonable city council. We want to do the best we can do for our citizens, not for us, for our citizens. Again, I have to get back to the vetting process. I've had emails, I've had text messages from friends and citizens, people I know, people I don't know, and I welcome that. But, you know, sometimes I wonder, if you want to be on the city council, why didn't you run? We've got, what, 7 or 8 people, I think, that are running now, or at least taking out papers. You know, I don't know, what's the motivation for being appointed to the city council for a very, very, very short period of time? I like elegant simplicity. I think that we ought to run the city the way we've run it tonight and the way we can continue to run it in the future. Thank you.
There we go.
Mr. Scott.
Did you want to tag on to something he was saying? Probably.
Yes. I don't like to contradict my colleagues up here at the dais, but I think you were way off base, Mr. Haley, because you were appointed city treasurer. We went through a process. You were an elected position that we appointed to fill out the remainder of a term.
That is correct.
So there's only 6 elected positions, and I think that you have to include all electeds in your comments about voting for somebody.
No.
So,
No, I'm going to strongly disagree with it. Mr. Fox, with all due respect, sir, we make different decisions on the city council than is made by the city treasurer. I think that we're comparing apples and oranges.
Well, and there's 6 elected officials in a city of 156,000. I think they're all the same, and we did make an appointment. So the voters did not get to vote on that. We, as a council, appointed that position. And I have always said the city treasurer has more power than we acknowledged. Look what it did to Orange County. Mr. Scott.
So I've given this quite a bit of thought, and I wanted to go in this position because I wanted to hear what my colleagues had to say. Many times that gives you a different perspective, the opportunity to hear other people's thoughts. I've listened to friends and others who I've spoken to in the community over the last few days. And in going through that thought process, which includes this evening, you can see we could take applications and have quite a few people put in for the position. Some will know, some we won't know. We've already gotten a number of people expressing interest to each of us. I'm sure if we put out an application, there'll be even more. But again, there'll be people new to the position who have never been a council member, potentially never served on a commission, which takes me to the commissioners. And I'm discounting anyone running for council right now. They need to continue their path, and I am in agreement that we would not appoint one of them. So going over to the commissioners, they have some experience in city business, but their experience is in a realm, a single realm, whether it be the library, the parks, and recreation, or the planning. There's still a larger, vast arena in which they don't have the experience yet. And I don't hold that against them. I don't hold it against those that would want to fill the position that have had no experience. I'm just determining that they want to do it to give back to the community. I also thought about another group of individuals, which are people that have had past experience. And those are former council members. They've sat in the seat, they've dealt with some of the issues, or at least experienced developer issues, freeway issues, and so on. So that's another group of individuals that could potentially put in, or we could seek out to come forward. Again, what I'm doing and what I have been doing is looking at the possibilities. So it's really led me to the position that the best option is for us to leave the seat open. And I believe that because, and my colleague, Councilman Haley, referenced it, we're so close time frame wise, we're so close to the upcoming election. I would prefer to leave it to the citizens of Corona to make the decision and make that the normal pathway. We can carry on. I'm not saying that we're stellar or anything like that. I just mean that we know the issues, we're moving forward on those, and time-wise, productivity-wise, I think the best course for us, and again, expressing sincere thanks to anybody who would want to fill the position for a short term, I still think the best path for us is to keep it open, let the community stay focused on the upcoming election, who is running for that election, what they stand for, and let them pick the best person for that seat. Thank you.
I'll just quickly, I don't disagree with what Mr. Scott is saying. I do disagree with some of the scenarios that Mr. Haley had mentioned, because I don't think we ever even anticipated any decision would be made in closed session. It's against the law, so I don't know why that would even be an issue, because we wouldn't ever do that. And I think tonight you're seeing here, and anybody that may be watching, part of the process because of the Brown Act. We can't talk to each other before tonight. No more than two of us can ever talk before a decision is made. So what you're seeing is actually the discussion process and the process that we have to go through, because we can't do this in closed session. We can't make this a predetermined decision. So I think the discussion that we're having is great, because I think that really shows what each one of us are thinking and the process and how we're getting to that. My last thought on this would be, at what point do we decide not to fill a vacancy? If it's not 4 months, is it 6 months? Is it 8 months? Is it a year? So I think one of the things that we need to come to grips with is that we don't have a policy for this or a procedure. And we need to look at what the process would be if we want to do that. In my mind, we should have something that would go by so it wouldn't be so ambiguous. But anyway.
Well, we do have a policy, and that's the state law that Dean has talked about. And but I agree with you. What point do you do that? And Mr. Haley, what you said is, we always said open session. We talked about a special meeting and not wait until September. So, and the extra work on our staff, it's not going to be a whole lot if you had a committee or we did it or whatever. And I don't see it as being all that extra work. And I think it, you know, when we keep saying, let the voters decide, the voters aren't deciding, they're deciding for the next term. So the election for November is not deciding for this seat here for the next 4 months. It's deciding for, Stan had already announced that he wasn't going to run, so that was already replacing that seat starting in December, not having the voters vote for the remainder of this term. So they, as Dean says, there's a time frame which they can't have that opportunity just because it's not by law and it's not practical. So there is not that option for voters to vote for the remainder of this seat. I just feel that there's an opportunity to involve people from the community. As I said, I would give all mine other comments, so. I think it sounds like we have a 2-2. So who wants to throw a motion and see where it goes?
I move that